Episode. I'm Kyle,
And I am Cassie.
and this one's going to be a little different than our normal episode. So we're just kind of going to do that normal get to know you process. So whenever you start your new job, there's always that awkward moment where it's, hey, let's play a name game, or what's your favorite superhero? This is our favorite superhero kind of moment here.
So who is your favorite superhero?
Ooh, Doctor Strange by far, easily.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Mine's Captain America. I love Captain America. I've always loved. I've been to the midnight release of all the movies. I love it. I love it so much. So who the heck are we, and what are we doing here? That's kind of the point of this episode. We want to introduce ourselves, kind of give you a chance to get to know who we are, and give you an insight to our big dream and our mission and what we want out of life. We're really excited about this journey. We aren't really sure how to quite jump into this. We've never done a podcast before. This is totally new to both of us. So we really appreciate your grace when it comes to making sure that our lighting and our audio and all of that is absolutely perfect. We really appreciate your patience and everything with working with us on that. So now that all of that is out of the way, the only other thing that I want to say as far as a disclaimer goes is that right now we are living with family. We do not have our own place. So we live with my dad, and he's got a bird, and his bird is like so loud. So just if you hear him, I've done my best to like get rid of his noise and stuff, but occasionally he's too loud, and there isn't anything that I can do to stop him. So yeah, if you hear him, I'm sorry.
We do appreciate you guys bearing with us here. So the other reason we really wanted to do this is we talk a lot of the time about all kind of varied subjects in a lot of different ways, and at a certain point we're like, well, maybe we should see if other people enjoy the kind of conversations we have, and as well as get other people's feedback as far as where those conversations go.
Yeah.
And really just what you guys think as well.
We do go really in depth sometimes. Like, occasionally, like when you first start relationships, you always have those times where you stay up and you talk for hours and hours and hours, right? That never went away. We've been together for 4 years, and we will still stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning just talking to each other, which is incredible. That's not something that we would have done with any other people. It's not something that I've ever done with anyone else. It's only ever been with you, so
Same.
It's like magic. I'm like, what the heck? Like, there's someone who likes to intellectually banter with me. Like, what? This is crazy.
Usually with that moment starting out, and then at a certain point, like you said, it does kind of fade away, and you have less and less of those conversations until, as we've gotten into the more modern society, it's drift away into either your phone, TV, whatever your distraction may be at that point, and you lose that connection that you originally once had.
Yeah, and we get really into, like, we've had friends, one of our friends, when we first started dating, do you remember when we were sitting on the couch in our apartment, and we got into it about something. I don't remember what it was that we got into it about, but it was like political or something. And two of our friends were sitting there, and they're like, oh my God, like, you guys look like you're about to rip each other's heads off. And then we're just like, no, we're good. We're good. Because we are. It wasn't personal. It was just it was a debate. We were having a debate, because that's the thing about debates that a lot of people don't get, is that it's not personal. It's just about the facts. It's not about your feelings.
It's not always I feel like too, a lot of times it gets lost in translation that it's thought of as an argument and not just a conversation of differing opinions. It's, this is my point of view, this is your point of view, this is how we can maybe meet together, and not, this is my point of view and why you should accept my point of view over yours.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've never been like outright just like, you're wrong. That's just not who we are. We like to play devil's advocate. Like, I've asked him some questions that, like, I don't believe in that. I just like, you, well, what about people who do? You know, like, what about them? Because we try to think about things from all angles and all sides. So yeah, it's a fun time whenever we talk with each other, and we always felt like, or we feel like other people would also enjoy being part of those conversations.
So definitely let us know your opinions, comment everything down below. That way we know what's going on. Anything you guys would like to hear us talk about in future episodes as well. Keep us informed of. But kind of going more into the rest of what we're here for. Another thing that we want to do with the podcast is we've always been kind of nerdy and everything like that, with varying interests from reading science, politics, mathematics, history, and
Crafts.
crafting, outdoors. So we just kind of wanted to bring a wide variety of these topics, as well as then kind of set up a place where we can have these discussionary forums that's not about a judgment mentality or here's what's right about this or here's what's wrong about that. No, it's just about information. Here's the information I have, what information you have, and how can we use that information to build a better world, a better society, a better place for everyone to be involved in.
Yeah, and I also think that another one of the big focuses that this channel is going to be on is sustainability. That's really important to both of us. We only have one planet, just one planet. We get one Earth. This is the only place that we have to live, and we care about it very much. So we have for our entire relationship, we have been working really hard to switch everything that we can over to reusable. When we did have our own place just a few months ago before we moved in with my dad, we weren't really buying paper towels anymore. We had gotten rid of so many things.
Trying to get rid of paper plates.
Yeah, we were trying to get rid of paper plates.
Anything that was paper or disposable or one-time use or limited time use. If there's an option that's a permanent use or a longer lifetime, kind of get back to more like how products were built in the early 1940s and 50s, when it was made to last, not just something that's made to use and replace.
Yeah, and what's the word? What's the term? I think it's planned obsolescence, or something like that. Like that's where the companies are pretty much like forcing us to have to buy new products because it's cheaper to buy a new one than it is to replace whatever it is that's broken in the old one. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Like that, oh my god, that blows my mind.
Either that or you have products that are made that just don't have replacement options. There's no way to repair it. There is no way to open it up. And then if you try to repair it on your own, you void any kind of warranties you may or may not have towards those products at that point.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of power away from people to be able to make decisions, make choices, make repairs to the products that you buy. I mean, especially when it comes to something that you've spent a lot of money on, and then having no options when it comes to fixing that product other than to go back to that company and say, all right, well, here I am, here's another hundreds, thousands of dollars to go ahead and fix or replace this new product.
Yeah. Was it Maytag and Whirlpool who had like their own technicians for like years and years and years? Like they did it right. They were doing the right thing. And I think just a few years ago, the Whirlpool one in Dayton closed, and that I was shocked. I'm like, where are their service people going to go? And now I hear that companies are bringing back service people because of this, because consumers are understandably upset, and they should be. They absolutely should be.
Especially when it comes to the waste side of things as well, too, because there's plenty of products that are made with that intention of, okay, well, you can't replace or repair this old one, so we're going to create another one, and you're going to have to buy that new one, and then nobody buys the new one, so that one gets shipped off to a landfill, and then there's still another new product replaced after that. Because you got to keep up with the lifetime warranties and limited warranties, and hopefully consumer demand meets what your expectation was.
Yeah, and that's a really nice way to lead us into our next point here is WALL-E. We love WALL-E. We love WALL-E so much. It's one of our favorite movies. I've seen it probably like 6 times. I freaking love WALL-E. But not because WALL-E is so cute. He is so cute.
He is.
He's adorable.
And Mop. Everybody loves Mop.
Everybody loves Mop, right? But it's not it's not just about the cuteness of the robots. It's about the message that WALL-E has behind it. We already recognize my lovely husband and I here recognize that we live in the Wally world. Even though humans are still on Earth, we live in the Wally world.
We slowly began transition, I feel like, at a certain point from where it was a face-to-face communication and everything became the screen communication, and now that's the primary form of communication. I mean, plenty of people either our age, older, other generations, they all complain about the fact that as we are moving more and more into a tech-based society, that you can't get a hold of your grandchildren, you can't get anybody without going through a screen of some kind. And all we're really waiting on is a hover chair to carry you around and take you from place to place that you need to be, so that way you don't have to pay attention to anything but the screen.
Yeah.
And I feel like as AI and other things start leading the ways here, they're slowly working towards having that ability to have something you can just, okay, hang out, watch your screen, do whatever you need to do. And
your drinks will be brought to you, your foods will be brought to you, like you don't have to do anything.
And there's an entire world that's happening around you that you're unaware of, and that maybe you don't like the way things are ran, maybe you don't like what's going on, but the screen's not showing you what's out there. It's only showing you the next thing that makes the most sense based on the last thing that you did.
Yeah. And we don't want to live in the Wally world.
No.
We love Wally, but we don't want to live in the Wally world. We want to live on planet Earth. We want to live in a planet where things are connected with each other, where they work together with each other and provide for each other. You know, that kind of thing. Like it's nature versus nurture. Like we're looking for nature. Not so much for the nurture.
Similar to like the Lorax or whatever. Like, I want the trees. I need the trees. Don't take away my trees.
I think there was this meme, and it was like, I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. If you litter again, I'll break your fucking knees.
Yeah, that exact mentality. We need more of that mentality going on just in general. That way we can save the trees. Save what we only have one of. And despite any back and forth that may happen as far as the system goes, I mean, if you see a little thing like that, maybe it's not everywhere, maybe it's not everybody, maybe the little things may or may not make the consequences of the overall whole system better, but every time that you say it's not going to do anything, you're correcting that assumption. It's going to do nothing because you've done nothing.
Yeah.
Even if that little bit of something is only a little bit, who's to say that little bit doesn't snowball into something larger and larger and larger, which is kind of where we're here as well, is to kind of be that voice of, hey, here's a counter idea to some of the mainstream topics, and maybe it's a way that our voice can snowball into more voices, and we can really make a change as far as the way things are going. Yeah,
I guess we'd like to be my feet tattoos. We'd like to be the change that we want to see. We very much, we're seeing a lot of stuff go downhill just in general, and I think a lot of people are noticing it as well. Or feeling it, even if you don't quite believe it yet, but you feel in your gut or your heart that something is just not right. It's really hard. It's hard.
And segueing that into another thing as well that we kind of want to do with this, our idea for what replaces that missing feeling or a void that a lot of us or maybe not be feeling, is kind of a meditative sense to a certain degree of like Utopia. It's finding that perfect place where you can imagine everything that you want to be real and having that come to life and be that reality. And that's something else that we'd like to kind of build towards, is what our idea of Utopia is, which is along the lines of kind of what we've been talking about so far, and building somewhere that gives others a sense to be able to explore more into what may or may not drive their passions, their feelings, what may help try to finally fill that empty feeling.
Yeah.
And not just more consumer goods or this or that, because at the end of the day, only something from inside of you can feel that inner void.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that you need exteriorly to help you set that inner peace to build that utopia for yourself as well?
And I think a lot of people, there's like a huge disconnect in everything that we do in life. There's, we're so disconnected from each other as far as communication goes. We are the most connected generation in human history. We have the ability to be connected with people all over the world, and yet we're the poorest communicators. Which makes no sense, but it's not just that, it's also like there's the disconnect from how we earn our money, because money isn't even real anymore. Most people don't even get paid cash. They get paid on a debit card, and then it goes into their bank account and they spend it. It's virtual money. Like it's not even real. And then, there's the disconnect with our food. You don't have to go out and hunt anymore. You just go to the grocery store and you get your beef. And I can't even tell you. And I grew up in farm country, so the fact that I'm going to say this it's very shocking to me. I can't tell you how many people in my grown adult life I have had to tell that beef is cow. It's cow. And they didn't get it. They were like, no, I just go to the store and I just get beef. And I'm like, yeah, it's cow.
It used to have hooves and everything, and walked around in a field for a while until it was processed.
Yeah.
We'll say that for the nice way. It was processed into beef.
Yeah.
We'll leave out the wink, wink. We know what happened there. Became beef process here.
Yeah. But there's so many disconnections all over, and it's not because we don't have access to the information. It's not because of a lack of information. We have all of the information of 2,000 years of human history.
It's where the information is used, and or where like the conversation is driven as well. I feel like there's plenty of information out there, but there's only a selection of that information that you get to have at any one point in time, and that based on that subsect, it then continues to be self-evident, and it uses more and more and more of that same information. And then in a lot of cases for the discourse that happens after that, a lot of the discourse turns negative in some kind of way. And then through that negative discourse causes people not to want to interject, not to want to say, here's my opinion, here's how I think we could make this better, here's what the problem may or may not be. It's, well, I don't want to become part of the attack that's happening in the conversation.
Yeah.
I don't want to be attacked by my perspective maybe not fitting with whatever's going on, or defending another lesser perspective that's not being openly pursued.
Yeah, well, and there's also like there's a lot of people who genuinely just don't even know where to start.
Yeah. And I would say that's kind of where we are too. That's another portion is at looking through podcasts. I don't feel like there's a podcast that's really like been the one that answers everything that I really want out of something. And granted, maybe it's just me wanting too much and being just I'm all over the place sporadically. So I want a podcast that also is sporadically and all over the place and gives me everything all in one.
It's the ADHD,
but also has it presents facts in a way that backs up what is being said. It's not just a montage or that's not the word I want for that, but it's not just
collage.
No, I can't think what the word is necessarily.
Every time that I think of that word, it makes me think of the fact that people mix up the word college and collage all the time. Because I'm like, someone was like, "Oh, did you get your degree from collage?" And I'm like, "How do you get a degree in collage?" Sorry.
It's okay. No, it's just I don't want it to be some monologue, I think is the word I want. Okay. Of just the same old information that either just presents, here's a whole bunch of things that are happening without any factual information that backs it up either, as far as here's how that information affects you, affects me, affects everyone, not just it's information that's out there, as well then too as something to give credibility to that information, or I'm a huge fan. I recommend everyone's listening to this podcast. Check out Adam Ruins Everything.
Great show.
Anything that Adam Conover does.
Yes.
Mostly because
the G Word was the other one he did.
The bottom portion of the screen, like right about here where my finger's pointing, he always links up these web sources for everything quoted in the show. That way, if any of it's like, no, I don't necessarily agree with that or believe what he's saying, you can do that same fact check on your own.
Yeah.
I would also like us to be able to do that same thing at a certain when we delve in more into the topics that we want to discuss, to also then present everybody with those same things. So that way, if anything we discuss isn't something that you're like, well, I never heard of that, I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah.
We'll link topics so that way you can also do your own research and say, okay, well, maybe they were right, maybe they were wrong, and
or
we can have and discuss about it.
That could be something that we could add to our website. We could have a section for just like resources.
Like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So really, like, what's perfect to you? What is perfect?
I guess for me, it's I guess traditionally considered like hippie bohemian kind of style. Like, I would love to just have my own. For example, if I was back in the day, I would just want a cart that has all my stuff on my cart and just travel from area to area.
Yeah.
Maybe like a traveling swordsman,
yeah,
a traveling salesman,
yeah,
traveling whatever the case.
The sword
may
seller,
be.
yeah, absolutely. I feel you.
But the nomadic traveling lifestyle has always been something that appeals to me. And granted, living in the modern world, it's much harder to have that kind of nomadic lifestyle.
It is.
But it's still something that really calls to me as an individual and where I'd really rather be.
Yeah. You know what doesn't call to me like as an individual?
What's that?
Living life the way that everyone else tells us that we're supposed to live life. Like there's like all there's all the things that you're supposed to do, right? You know, like you're supposed to get a high school diploma, you know, graduate high school, and then you're supposed to go to college, and then you're supposed to get married, and you're supposed to have kids, and buy a house, and buy a car. And all those things cost money. And when you're 18 years old and fresh to the world, being an adult, you don't have any money.
You don't have money, and you don't, as a lot of people complain about that I see in a lot of what I read and everything, you don't have the educational knowledge for those things either. I see so many people, and I've heard a lot of people, I've worked in a lot of finance jobs, and I hear a lot of people and talk to a lot of people about it as well. The complaint that during high school and or even before that, they never teach you anything about finance, about the money system outside of economics, and even then that's more the government side of the finance system, not what you're going to interact with, not how do you deal with your credit, what banks should you go with, what APRs are best or worse, how you check those versus other ones. The last thing they really teach you,
or how to understand any of that.
How to understand any of it, how does any of that affect you as an individual versus just being the federal government or someone else up on, okay, we're increasing that rate at the federal APR by 0.5%.
Yeah.
Like, then you read on the news or whatever else, or you hear about it, okay, well, this is bad because it's going to do this for our economy.
Right.
And you don't really have enough to correlate. Okay, well, how is that going to affect me then? Like, it's going to do this for the economy, which is bad for the economy. But I'm not the entire economy. I'm a subsect, a portion of that economy. I'm not the whole picture here. So without having any of that information, it leaves you out of the conversation and or out of the ability to make certain choices given that information.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. That was a lot of information all at once. You just like overloaded me. Oh, I'm sorry. But yes, yeah, it is. It's overwhelming for people. I think because like it just was for me. It's a lot to take in all at once because you're a kid. When you're supposed to be learning this stuff, you are a kid, and you should be allowed to be a kid. You should be allowed to go out with your friends and do teenage things and not have to worry about how am I supposed to pay for college if college is the right path for you, because it is the right path for some people. You know, there are careers that you absolutely have to go to college for. If you want to be a doctor, you have to go to college.
I definitely hope that if I go see the doctor, he went to school to be a doctor and didn't just get something out of a book somewhere and go, okay, I think I can change out your appendix or whatever. Like, I really hope you don't just slice me open without knowing exactly what you're slicing.
Yeah, but I think that's really what it's all about for us right now, is like the path. Because we, as millennials, we were all kind of fed and encouraged to follow the same path. which led us severely into debt. And a lot of us struggle with some pretty serious mental health issues. One of my dad's friends asked me about it the other day. You know, why do we have so many people who are dealing with these mental health issues? And I'm like, boomers. You know, like they literally don't understand. They can't understand because when they grew up, it wasn't that way, and they've been so far removed from it that it just they physically cannot understand it anymore.
Well, and a lot of what changed only changed in kind of a background perspective as well. At a certain point, you already had an established career, you already had an established this and this and that. So then, as cost of living increases and stuff like that go up, 50 cents, or economy shut down, based on having an established position of some kind, when those changes happened a decade or more ago initially, it wasn't a major change or something that was seen as what it was going to be in the future. You see that wages are going up, and because you already had a certain wage that was set based on pre-economic standards in a different time, now when the wage goes up minorly for the minimum wage, your wage goes up as well, but you don't really notice that that minimum is only so big for the people down here that are just entering the workforce, because you don't have a reason to care about what that minimum wage is. It's not your minimum wage, that's newer workforce's minimum wage. And then it's also as things have changed too over time with companies. I mean, hiring, firing, things like that has changed.
Companies don't do pension plans anymore, so that doesn't give employees a reason to want to stay long term. And I know there's been a lot of companies out there that have been like complaining because nobody wants to work anymore. Nobody wants to work for you because you don't offer any benefits.
Or there's a lot of too, like, I feel like a lot of us feel like there's broken promises too. There's room for growth. There's room for expansion. We only do this. We only do that.
Yeah.
And that's what you're told in the interview process, during the hiring process. And then 6 months, a year, 5 years down the road, not seeing those opportunities actually developing then causes like resentments, frustrations, and whatever else towards not only that first initial offering, but then any other time that it's offered after that. You can only think back to that initial time where it said, hey, no.
Yeah. And actually, I think now that you said that, like, it really just occurs to me, I think that's what the problem is with millennials in the workforce, is that, like, we've been lied to our entire lives, and we're tired of being lied to. So, no, we're not going to work for you if you're just going to lie to us. Why would we work for you? Like, I'm not going to be gaslit by my employer. Goodbye.
Well, mine too.
What the hell?
Mine too are not seeing the benefits on both sides. It's always, what can you bring to the table? What can you bring to the table? What can you bring to the table? And you bring something to the table. And not saying all cases, because I mean, sure, some companies do have a reason why certain policies are in place the way they are. And a lot of that comes down to like the bad apple spoils the bunch or something. It only took one person doing the wrong thing to now suddenly make it that everybody is doing the wrong thing. Or we have to put something in place for every person so that way nobody can ever do the wrong thing again, which then in some cases prevents people from being able to do the right thing or get the right benefits.
And a lot of people, like these corporations, they'll make people wait like a year for health insurance. Like, do you think that someone's going to go an entire year without getting sick? That's not... Some people, some people can go years and years and years without getting sick. I am not one of those people. But I also have a chronic illness. So, I mean, you kind of trade one with the other. Like, if you have a chronic illness, you're probably going to get sick more frequently than other people. But definitely. That also then limits your options. If you have a chronic illness, then you can't take a job that doesn't offer you health insurance right away.
And I mean, even at that then too, I mean, another one that we'll probably do another episode on later on is like the insurance system in and of itself. The fact that insurance, you already have to pay an arm and a leg just to get the insurance. Then you use your insurance, and then you have to give them the other arm and a leg because you use the insurance.
And then you're penalized for it for years.
and then it becomes its own revolving door as well as everything else. And I feel like that's why too, a large portion of problems, kind of going back here slightly, are largely due to the financial portion of aspects. Like by not having that financial knowledge or education or anything that we were given during high school, there's no ability to make educated decisions for what's going to affect you for your insurance for this, or for things that are going to affect you for the rest of your life. And as long as you're living, these are problems that are going to come up for you. And having to do all that research on your own is daunting.
It is.
At best.
It is. And especially when you don't understand it, because the whole point of doing things in school is that you have an instructor there to help you with things that you don't understand. And what do you do on the internet whenever you don't understand something? You just Google it, because that's literally all people know how to do, except some kids these days don't even know how to use Google. Don't even get me started on that. Oh my God, I found that out the other day, and I was like, amazed. Amazed.
And then too, I mean, that's another great point you bring up. I mean, then too, it's everybody. In some cases, there's experts for everything, and are all the experts always experts? Sometimes you have people that they're an expert in this or an expert in that, and the advice that they give 6-8 months down the way, and granted things can change over time as well, so don't say everybody's terrible, but there are people that only give you half the advice or not enough advice to actually benefit you to get where you're going.
They give you half the advice. We were talking about this the other day. One of the things that like always makes me so mad is when you see those articles online and they're like, here's like 10 ways to make money online, okay? And then it's like, it tells you, sell your stuff. It doesn't say where you can sell your stuff. It just says sell your stuff. Or it says like, you know, like do freelancing. Doesn't say where to do freelancing. Just says to do freelancing. And it's so vague. And it like I said, it gives people, they get confused and overwhelmed because they don't even know where to start. How can they know where to start when you have literally given them nothing?
And then, like you're saying too, when the first 10 results are also similar things to that same thing, you're then combing now and you're having to dig through for something that used to be, because I remember back when I was in high school and stuff, using Google to search for stuff. I was like, hey Google, how is this, or what is this, or how does this work? And it gave me an answer or a web page that I could get that answer from, not a web page that would get me to a web page that would get me to a web page to hopefully get an answer.
And I feel like it's the difference between educational content and sponsored content. There used to be a lot of educational content that could be easily found on Google, and now it's a lot more difficult to find it. There's ways that you can do it, and you know what, we might do a whole episode about how to search on Google, because some people just don't understand, and maybe it will help you actually find the resources that you're looking for rather than just sponsored content and ads, because that's really what it is. People pay money to have their search result put up at the top of Google's page, and I don't think that should be allowed. I think it should be kind of how it was in the early 2000s before Google came along, where you searched on Ask Jeeves. Do you remember Ask Jeeves?
I do remember Ask Jeeves.
But we searched on Ask Jeeves, and you had to be very specific. If you were vague in your search request, you were not going to find your answer. And I think that I like that we can be a little bit vague and still find our answers now. Like, I like that, but I want there to be a lot less of the sponsored content to be what shows up. I want what is relevant to the search to show up first, not the sponsored content.
I would like relevancy, as well as to, even like you said, kind of go back to a different way and have different metrics be a thing that monitors it. Not just who pays the most to have their pages put the highest, or the interaction with that page, but like real interaction with that page. How long did someone go there? How often does someone go there? Do people continue to go there over a longer period of time? And ranking websites based on that information. That way, if a website is created or something like that to answer a topic, but isn't given any new relevant information for a year, eventually a new website becomes the new most relevant website, not that one still. Or even to adding something small, just because the website has something small added here and there, unless it's a relevant thing that's really adding to the time people are on that website, it not making that website repopulate to be newer in the listing just because something new is on it, not something new relevance is on it.
Yeah, we'll do a whole episode about that. We'll add that to the list, because I definitely think that the internet is an interesting topic, just as a whole. So I think we could go really in depth with that.
I would agree.
But as far as our purposes with this goes,
yes,
what we're really looking for is we want to try to build our utopia, and I guess perfect for me, you know, I asked you earlier what perfect is for you. Perfect for me is kind of just like waking up exactly where I want to be. Whether it's, you know, hey, today I want to be on a beach, or tomorrow I want to be in the mountains, or whatever. I just want to wake up exactly where I want to be. And I feel like, you know, with you, I'm exactly where I want to be. So I like that. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about the barking. But yes, I feel like with you, I'm exactly where I want to be, but like location wise, like emotion wise, I'm good, but like location wise, I'm not where I want to be. We're in Ohio. It's lame. We've lived in Ohio our entire lives. It hasn't gotten any less lame. It's only gotten more lame. Well, I mean, they did legalize marijuana, or we did legalize marijuana.
We did.
So it's a little less lame, but our government is really dragging their feet about what the people asked for. So
the processing. Yeah,
it's a real giant pain in the butt. But really what we want as far as like building our utopia, I want to build, like you said earlier, you know, a place where people can like hone their skills and get more connected and back to whatever it is that you're missing. You find it there. That's what we want for you. We want you to go and just be able to be at peace with everything around you and figure out what it is that you're missing. Maybe what you're missing is being able to fight with a sword and a shield. Maybe what you're missing is a nice meditative walk through the forest. I don't know. You know, like there's so many things that you could be missing. Maybe what you're missing is learning how to make a basket, or knowing how to craft something. We want to offer classes and that kind of stuff there. We do want experts to come so that we can offer classes and show people these other skills that may have been forgotten to time, like basketry and weaving and that kind of stuff that a lot less people do now. But it's starting to gain popularity with the homesteading community.
It's, and as well as a lot of people are starting to go back into as well, like bushcrafting and other things, more of a natural way of making resources, especially as kind of, again, prices go up and up and up. It's more, how can I do this so that way I don't have to pay a company's price that's ridiculous to continue to do this.
Yeah. Well, and also I want to make sure that like where we built, because like we've talked about, we care very deeply about our one and only planet. So we want to make sure that where we do build, whatever structures are there are made out of the materials from around us. So we'd like to use dead trees in the area, because I guarantee there are probably some dead trees that need to be taken down. Need to be taken down. We wouldn't take down anything that didn't need to be taken down. As well as, you know, there's a lot of methods that you can do cob with mud and straw, and we can recycle materials as well. That's the other thing that we want to use, a lot of recycled materials, because I for one am tired of seeing things end up in landfills.
Yes.
And then we also want it to be fully self-sufficient.
Yes. A self-sustaining area that's running more off-grid, so in one direction. That way it's rejuvenating its own power, it's building its own water, it's working a way a natural system can, and in a way that we could build the society that we live in towards that's just not being done.
Yeah.
And kind of, again, it goes back to...
Not being done because of greed, mostly.
Yeah, because of greed and because of a lack of the spreading of that knowledge. And I feel like if we can advance the spreading of, if more people know how to do these things, know why these things benefit them, then it can change the entire conversation or the entire dynamic versus just, well, this is the way it is, and I guess this is what I have to do to fit in with the way it is.
Yeah, and I do think it's important to say, and I might say it a couple more times, not in this podcast, like not in this particular episode, but like throughout the podcast, there are more millennials and Gen Z than there are any other generation. That's all I'm going to say.
It's true. True.
We have the power to make some change.
We do. It's just a matter of knowing how to use that power to not only benefit ourselves, but to benefit everyone else in the process.
Yeah.
Because you do have to take into account that if just because something's going to work for one group, it may not work for another group. And that not everything is going to work for all groups, but trying to find the most compromising way so that all groups can work together.
Okay. Okay, and then sorry, this is our first episode, so we kind of got distracted here for a second because somebody walked in. Again, we are living with family, so it's a lot. Wow, we're the same. Because we talked about the disconnection, and we know that, that was the one thing that we didn't touch on. Well, we were kind of just now touching on it, was the future generations. Is that we are the future. Like, we have the opportunity here.
We are children, everyone else. It's kind of like everyone, you see a lot for Social Security is going to run out. This is going to run out. There's a lot of doomsday, apocalyptic things that are happening.
So much doom.
Truly doomsdaying, but at least at the end of the day, they're not going to be beneficial to anyone. So we might as well work on trying to figure out ways to build more beneficial systems while we still have a chance to, than trying to really figure out when things are collapsing how to put them back up.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of right now, is collapse, because there's so many bubbles waiting to burst, whether you know about it or not. I don't know, a lot of people don't pay attention to the news.
It's true.
Or they only pay attention to certain types of news. Like, some people only watch good news, and it's like you have to watch all of the news. Not just the good news. Like, what a wild view to have on life.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Right, like you got to see it all, man. So yeah, it's when you restrict that, you create that disconnection, and it drives a bigger wedge in between people, and it makes people focus on, like, why we're different, why are you different than me, why am I better than you because I'm different than you, and what about my difference makes me better than you. And that's just, it's not a good attitude to have. It's not an attitude that is going to better humanity or help us advance sociologically at all. It's not going to happen.
It's not embracing the differences. It's trying to show off for a difference, and that's not really what you're looking for there. It's more being embracing of the fact that, hey, I'm different, you're different. What makes you different? How can I learn from your difference?
Yeah.
And not, well, I'm different and you're different, but my different is the right different.
Yeah, and I think that it used to be, I mean, I don't want to say that we used to embrace people for their difference, because I don't think that we really ever have.
There's always some amount of resistance whenever there's differences.
Yeah, people have always kind of stuck to their clique, so to speak, their subsect, their race, their whatever. They stay in their lane.
Their in-group.
Yeah, whereas, I'm one of those people that, like, I see Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah, and I'm like, can I come? Like, I want to celebrate Hanukkah. I'm not Jewish. I don't know anything about Judaism, but would love to learn. you know, from a strictly supportive friend role, like I would love to be a part of your religious celebration. Like, yes, please invite me.
Exactly.
You know, like that is the point of religion that a lot of people don't get, is that it's, you are supposed to embody what you believe so much that other people want to be a part of it. Um,
Versus trying to say, hey, here's all the reasons why you should be a part of it, or
Yeah.
because you're not doing these, you can't be a part of it.
Yeah, or saying like, oh, because you don't believe in God, you're going to hell. Like, whoa, man, there's like so many gods.
It creates
Oh.
the wrong type of outsider view, because I've always felt kind of like an outsider or an outcast based on my opinions or the way that I viewpoint things. It's not the traditional views always. And in certain cases, it's making outsiders into the bad guy versus just the guy that's different than you. And then
Yeah.
it's okay to stand outside of the in group. You don't always have to be part of that perspective. And or two, there's enough people that feel like outsiders in various groups here, that you almost form your own in group without knowing about it, because by feeling outside of all these other groups, you don't realize that a lot of other people are also outside of those groups.
Yeah.
And you could all come together and form your own different kind of group.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to feel alone when you're an outsider.
It is. When you're different, when your differences are made
Or when
to be
you
a
feel different.
bad kind of thing, and
Yeah.
not something that, hey, that's awesome that you're different than me. How can I learn from that? It's, you're different than me. I don't know if I like that.
Yeah, when really it's, I don't know. I feel like I see people of different cultures and different walks of life, I'll call it, because it's not just all about culture. You know, there's tons of Americans who are Americans just like me, but their experience with life is completely different. And I want to be a part of their experience. I want to connect with other people in a way that is higher than, oh, we're Facebook friends.
Those varying perspectives, I guess, is how I've
Yeah.
always put it. Like, you and I may have a different perspective of how the world is, how it should work. But if we can find a way that our perspectives are similar, then we can work together. Versus if we only find ways that we're not similar, then we have to fight over which not similar is correct.
Yeah, and I think especially working towards a better future, because like you said, you know, that everybody talks about like, oh, this is going to run out, that's going to run out, but they never talk about what the alternative is.
Yeah.
What is the other plan? Like, okay, now we know, we millennials know for a fact that Social Security is probably going to be gone before we get old enough to claim it, because there's just too many people claiming it, that the funds are going to dry up. And that doesn't really make sense to me entirely, because we all pay into Social Security every year, but it's because they keep borrowing money out of it. It's a whole thing. But anyway, I can't remember where I was going with that.
It's a matter of, like how you said, that things are going to be running out here at a certain point, being Social Security and other things, and that, like you said, they talk about how it's going to run out. They don't talk about what your alternative is, what you could do when it does run out, or what you can do to prepare yourself for it if and when it runs out. It's just, hey, it's going to run out. These are the people to be mad at because it's going to run out.
Right.
Well, being mad, yes. I mean, have frustration, be outraged, so that way maybe you can affect future changes for things. But only
but ask
being
literally
mad and
any toddler,
outraged,
what does being mad get you?
Yes, being mad and outraged pretty much usually just gets you put into timeout. It doesn't get you answers. It doesn't get you an effective change. It doesn't help you in the long run. Yeah. So having those answers as well for more things of, okay, so just to be realistic, Social Security is going to run out here in the next 20 years. Here's what you can do if you were planning to draw on it in 20 years. Do X, Y, Z to set yourself up, or whatever you can of X, Y, Z. But at least present options other than just be outraged, and that's your option.
Yeah, well, and they also say things, you know, like you should put money into retirement accounts, but then like they don't explain that there's so many different kinds of retirement accounts, and there's limits to how much you can take out of those accounts if you're under a certain age, if you absolutely need that money, because sometimes emergencies happen, and you need that money like in your hand, physical, now, You don't need it in 40 years.
And that's another one that I definitely would like to do future episodes on.
Yeah,
Is
definitely
investing
finance. Yeah.
in, retirements a
Mhm.
lot, because too, just like you said,
No one,
it,
yeah, doesn't. I didn't
it,
understand the difference between the IRAs until you and I were together and you explained it to me. I had no idea. I just thought there was just one IRA. I didn't realize that there was more than one IRA.
the difference between your 401ks, your IRAs, your other different retirement options, as well as like how do those retirement options work? What's inside those retirement options? And then it's just told, well, put money in your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a lot easier to give money to Social Security and know that one day, as long as Social Security is still there, well, I can draw this amount of money back out of it, versus put your money into some kind of retirement account,
Yeah.
invest it wisely,
Yeah.
and you can draw money back out of it. But if it's not invested wisely, you may not have anything to draw back out of it.
Yeah. Well, and
then,
that's the other thing a lot of people don't understand, that we definitely, well, we're going to brush through this topic pretty quick, because we want to do a whole podcast on that for sure, because a lot of people don't understand that when you put money in your 401k, they are investing in stocks for you.
And what that can mean overall,
Yeah.
as far as for not only what you can do with your money in the future, but what that money is buying,
what that money can do for
right
you.
now.
Yeah. But we feel like, you know, we've lived by the status quo our entire lives. We're a young married couple, but we're in our 30s. So we definitely were established adults. We had our own apartment, we had our own place to live and everything, and
looking at buying house options.
Yeah, we were looking for buying a house and moving across the state, so it made sense for us to move in with family, because looking for a house when you live 3 hours away is really difficult, especially when you are paying for an apartment as well, because like, how are we supposed to save up money with it's insane. But the financial stuff, the financial stuff it's a big factor, and I know that it's a big factor for a lot of people right now, because the rent's going up, the cost of food is going up, the utilities are going up, the gas is going up, everything is more expensive, and we're not making more money. So,
and no one really has answers as far as, hey, here's what you can do
to save yourself money,
place
or
of that, other than just budget really, really hard. And
as you and I have talked about many times, you cannot budget your way out of poverty. It's just not, it's not possible. No one ever has budgeted their way out of poverty, and if they tell you that they have, they're a liar. They got some kind of loan. Like 100%.
Budgeting is something that you do when
you have
you're
money.
getting close on, like, hey, it seems like we're having a shortage this or that month, and that shortage is something reasonable. It's not, hey, well, we only have half as much money as we need to pay all our bills and eat and everything else. That's not a budgeting situation. And a lot of people are in those situations, even despite working 2-3 jobs, having multiple people in the household working 2 and 3 jobs, and still getting stuck in
and
that
still barely scraping by.
We don't have enough to get by, and we're still short, and we're not just short by a little, we're significantly short.
Yeah, you're short by a lot. And then, you know, you had like the interest rates and all that stuff on loans. That doesn't help. On credit cards, that doesn't help. And I know what you're thinking, like, don't take out credit cards whenever you can't afford to pay, but like, that is life, so I don't want to hear
it. Or in some cases too, you take out credit cards and you use your credit cards wisely. You do all the right things
because you're in a good position.
Circumstances change, the situations change, like we've had with a lot of different things economically over the last, I mean, since we've been adults even. There's been so many different things that have happened that you can't always prepare for, or that can happen in the blink of an eye, and suddenly your situation changes, and then trying to get back to a similar situation to what you had,
takes
or another
months.
Good situation can take months, can take years, or by the time it finally happens, you're already so far in a hole. It's, how do I climb back out of this hole when daylight is so far away?
Yeah, and I feel like our parents and our grandparents, they kind of followed the path, you know, the path that they encouraged us to follow. They followed the path, and it worked well for them.
Good.
So I don't entirely fault them for encouraging us to follow that path, but I do fault them for discouraging us from following any other path.
Yes.
Because I feel like that's really what the problem is. There's so many millennials who went to college because they thought it was going to get them a good job, and then they're like, okay, well, I went to college, I learned, but not like that. Like, you didn't do it right. Like,
you went to college and you got the degree, but
Yeah.
you didn't do anything in the field while at college to get the skills
Yeah.
or the background to be worth it, to pay you whatever your degree is worth.
yeah,
Or your degree is oversaturated. There's so many
There's too many
with
people in your
this or
market.
that degree
Mhm.
that you can't get the money that you need to pay back the loans or whatever that you had to take out to get that degree.
yeah. And I think a lot of people just are in that kind of mindset. So I mean, really think about it. Try to put yourself in your parents and your grandparents' shoes, and realize that they encouraged you to follow that path because that path worked for them, and they literally don't understand that the world is a different place now than it was 50, 60 years ago. It's drastically different, like so different. It's like night and day.
Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, with that disconnect, it comes across that each side has their valid points and their valid arguments and valid reasons why, hey, this side isn't doing their portion, hey, this side did this side did that. Like, there's valid reasons on either side for a case by case argument.
Yeah.
But it's when the large portions get glossed over by smaller things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this isn't the cause of the issue, this is an effect from the issue.
Right.
Not what's actually making a difference here. And if we can change this here, then we can affect the issue as a whole.
Right.
And instead we attack issues here and there, and it kind of like, well, let's put a band-aid here and let's put a band there, instead of like, let's just stop walking through razor blades, that way we don't have to keep band-aiding these areas.
Right. Well, and I feel like living life that way has just not really been working out for us.
I would agree.
Just in general, like we've really tried to do things the way that everybody says you're supposed to do things. We had an apartment, we paying all of our bills, we have a car, and we have a loan for the car. And when you have a loan for the car, you have to have full covered insurance on the car. So we have insurance for the car, and there's so many things all piled on top of each other. And at the end of the day, like, money is not something that I particularly care all that much about. Like, I could give a shit less about money.
Or to the future perspective that comes with doing it that way as well. Like, our next step would be to get a 20-30 year mortgage and lock ourselves into, hey, this is where you're going to be at for at least X amount of time.
Yeah.
And then you get to either pay the house and then play the house flipping game and moving into a new house and a new house in a new area and continuing to try to do it that way.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that appeals to people, but it's not something that I feel like necessarily appeals for us or where we want to be at. And doing things that way isn't what's going to make us happy in 20 to 30, 40 years.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of like making us happy, like I struggle with mental health issues, and I know that during our conversation about like why we wanted to do this and everything, that was one of the things that we had talked about, was maybe part of the reason that we are struggling with mental health issues so hard is because of the fact that we are living this almost like fake life. Like we are living someone else's lives because we're not living life the way that we want to. And why are we doing that? Why are we living life to other people's standards? Why does it matter what other people think? Why can't we just go out and be people and just exist in the world and not have to pay bills and worry about credit scores and that kind of stuff? Like that, I just want to pick berries in the woods, damn it. Like,
I feel like a portion of that comes from the like judgments perspective of, well, if I do this or I do that, then what's everyone else gonna think? And two, it's placing that higher value on what other people may think about the choices you're making.
Yeah.
Than the fact that you're the only voice that's in your head when you're falling asleep. So does this choice make sense for you? Is it going to make you happy? Is it going to make you feel fulfilled? Versus is it going to make someone else feel fulfilled?
Yeah. And I at the end of the day, I want to feel fulfilled with my own life. And I want to be happy with where I'm at in whatever season of life I'm in.
I agree with that. So I would say that kind of covers a general, like, what we want from the overall podcast. Kind of gives you guys a good, like, hey, here's who we are.
And kind of a good, I would say that we did a really good job because of our topic jumping, because this is how we would normally conversate with each other. We have like some bullet points, but for the most part, this is just a conversation. So I think that we've done a really good job of kind of showing how we communicate with each other, and also that there will be a wide variety of topics covered on this show.
Yes.
One of the things whenever I was looking for a podcast was I was looking for a podcast about like recycling and sustainability and stuff, and I couldn't find anything because it just, at the time I was looking, it just simply didn't exist. Or at least what I was looking for, it didn't exist, and it may exist now, but because I haven't looked recently, but at least for now, like I want to be what I'm looking for.
Yes.
You know,
if we can't find it, then we might as well create it.
Yeah.
And then kind of again how we keep rolling into stuff.
So
speaking of creating it,
yeah, all of this is about Utopia. All of this is about our big dream and creating a place where people can come and be and just exist as human beings. And we have a lot of different steps that we're going to need to take to get there.
Yes.
So phase 1, if you want to roll out with phase 1.
So our phase 1 is
where we're at right now.
What we'd like to call getting a mosh. And what that is it's going to be a mobile home that we can create into a mobile off-grid sustainable housing is what our mosh stands for here. And what that's going to be is something that it's a semi-permanent living situation that also gives us the mobility that we're looking for.
So we need, phase 1 is to obtain a Class A motorhome, as well as doing a lot of research as far as what we need to do as conversion and rebuilding it so that it fits our needs, all of our needs, everything that we need while we're on the road.
That way we can definitely retrofit it into any extra doodads or off-market products that we want on there. Yeah, and we want to make sure that we have ample space. The reason we got to have a Class A motorhome is because Kyle here does have a daughter, my lovely stepdaughter, and we want to make sure that she has her own dedicated space, because she didn't decide for this, you know, she didn't choose this, we did, and so we want to make sure that she's got her own spot that's hers. She still has the same comforts that she's used to.
Yeah, she deserves consistency, so we want to make sure that she has the consistency there. But then we move on to phase 2. Once our build is done, what we're gonna do after that is we're gonna travel. Because, I mean, what else do you do with a motorhome or an RV if you don't know what a motorhome is? You travel. And by golly, I think that was one of the things that we had talked about a few weeks ago. We would love to travel internationally. But if we ever did, it would probably be like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. We would never have that chance again. And I don't want to live life that way. I don't want to only get one chance to go to California. I've never been further west than Chicago, but I want to go see the redwoods. I want to see the Rocky Mountains.
and it's that traveling call, I would say, is a large portion of it, as well as seeking the right kind of area, because I do want somewhere that's beautiful and open and out in nature, and gives you that disconnection from concrete. I don't like concrete. Let's just get away from concrete.
Yeah, well, and the traveling is not just to kind of satisfy our need to travel. It's also, and our desire to travel. It's also because we're looking for the place to build Utopia. that's the only way that we're going to find it is by driving around the company driving around the country and seeing these places that are abandoned, maybe old summer camps, or just places that people have forgotten about, that could use revitalized. So that's kind of what we're looking for, in terms of like where Utopia could be. Personally, I want there to be water close by.
Yes.
So I'd like to have like a lake or something like that.
Definitely, for sure. And I would say our process then after we do find the area that we're looking for is to then begin really expanding, start construction of what we look to be Utopia.
Yeah.
Tree houses, underground housing, forts,
cob houses,
hill
houses,
workspaces for blacksmithing,
a sword training ground,
really just a lot of fantasy meets reality comes to life.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that I know that, again, like we kind of mentioned before, we're kind of nerdy.
Big nerds.
I love fantasy worlds.
We're watching Game of Thrones right now. It's his first time.
And it is pretty good so far. I'll give it that. But with the love of fantasy worlds, there's not really a lot of places that have a dedication to that fantasy world. There's a lot of groups that enjoy LARPing. There's a lot of people, especially our millennial age, that enjoy a lot of nerdier kind of things. And that's another thing that we want to kind of be here for as well, that we didn't really mention earlier on, is to be that home for kind of the nerd in everybody, because everybody has that thing they kind of nerd out over. Like, maybe you're big into sports and you're like, I know everything about the the Detroit Red Wings, and that maybe your big nerd stick, or maybe you're like, I can quote pi to 100 places, whatever the thing may be. But there's always that one thing that you're a little bit of a nerd about, and we want to build that place that everybody who has those nerd things has a home where it's like, okay, this is my nerd gimmick. What's your nerd gimmick? And how can we share, embrace, learn from those? Yeah,
we want everyone to embrace their inner nerd, because that's who we are. It's who we've always been. We're nerds. We like nerdy things. And if you love sports, like if you're a big sports buff and you think that you're not a nerd, you're a nerd. If you literally walk around in your favorite player's jersey, you're wearing his work uniform. You're a nerd. Like you're cosplaying as him. You're a nerd.
Hey, it's your Superman cape, whether you want to accept that or not.
Yeah, it really is. It is. And so once we complete phase 3, once we get like Utopia built up so that there is a place for the nerd in all of us, then we want to invite everyone to come. But in order for us to get there, like we're gonna need help. We can't do this on our own. Obviously.
Nor is it something that we want to do on our own.
No, it's not.
As we said, it's a community project. It's something that we want to bring everybody into and have more than just us be a part of. Yeah,
definitely. We definitely want more than just us involved. There's a guy, I'm going to say his name because I'm going to put it out in the universe that if I say his name now, then maybe we'll get to work with him. Because we've been watching this show called Off the Grid Living or something like that. Off the Grid Building. Off Grid Builds, yeah. And they build some really cool stuff. And there's this one particular guy on there who I really love his work. I think it's so beautiful, and I would just love to work with him. His name is Sage Stoneman. He makes the coolest like little mushroom houses and cop houses and that kind of stuff. Like, and I just, oh my god, I think it would be so cool if he could help us build some of the stuff where Utopia is. That would be amazing.
That would definitely be
like a dream.
Yes, beyond. So.
Yeah, I would love to work with him. But yeah, so I mean, once we get it open and everything, we would love for other people to come.
Collaboration is key. I feel like is what our big kind of message is with that.
Yeah, and speaking of collaboration, if this is a mission that you feel called to, if this is something that you feel like you want to support, we do have a Patreon that I just started a couple weeks ago. Just put an introductory post out there to kind of explain our mission. This will also be going on the Patreon, as well as there will be some private member exclusive posts on there as well, some like behind the scenes kind of stuff, because we want to share the entire journey with you. We don't want this to just be a podcast. Like, yeah, the podcast it's part of it, you know, but there's going to be other parts too. There'll be video series of us doing our renovations on our motorhome, and there'll be video series of us doing our travels and finding where we're going to build Utopia and building Utopia. And like there's so much. We want you to be part of every step of the journey. We want to do this quest with you. We don't want it to be something that is our quest, because it's not our quest, it's our quest. You know, it's like our collective quest. Rather than like my individual quest.
The quest for humanity.
yeah, the quest for humanity, which we all desperately need.
But then so definitely check us out on our Patreon. Then like, share, follow, subscribe with us here. And I guess lastly too, if you guys know anyone who has a Class A motorhome, we're looking for one that doesn't have to be running, doesn't have to be the greatest thing. If a little bit of stuff is falling apart, our plan is to rip it apart entirely and rebuild from the ground up. So definitely share in the comments section if you do know anyone that we might be willing to reach out or work with on that one as well.
Yeah, or, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to us personally. Please send us a message, and we'd be happy to work with you if it's a legitimate offer. You know, obviously we can't really afford to like pay a lot, but if you have if someone that you know has a motorhome that they'd like to donate to our project, they will absolutely get credit for their donation. And then the only other way that you can support us is it's free. If you this is super free. We like free. It's our favorite price. You can drop a like on this video if this is a mission that you want to support and you just really like it. Just drop us a like or drop us a comment. Follow us. Share our social media profiles to your friends if following people on social media is your thing,
or if we're just your vibe as well.
Yeah, or if we're just your vibe, you know, we might just be your vibe. We are a lot of people's vibes, so it makes sense to me. But I think that that's pretty much everything that I have for today.
I would say so. Yeah,
that pretty much wraps it up.
Catch us in our next follow-up to the series, and hope to hear from you guys.